Live here with David Icke. A big fan of yours. I've known you for a while. Recently, though, I started going into your work more and more. I just finished your new book, Roadmap, which is excellent. So much things. I mean, I think you finished a couple months ago, and like it's kind of happening right now. What you predicted. When we first talked, I was a little skeptical, but pretty much everything you said keep being right. Like, I was unsure about Elon Musk. It's been very clear that he's a puppet. Early on, and embarrassingly, I fell for the Trump thing. During COVID, I realized that was a total scam. You've been calling him out from the very beginning. You get a lot of things right. I'm not going to say you get everything right because I don't believe any human gets everything right, but you get so many things right. I'm just going to read a couple of them really quick before we start because I think it's important. People that don't know you, I didn't even know this. I looked for some older ones. Like you predicted wait, this is the wrong one. You got so many things right. We're not going to read them all, but just a few of them. Like you named the Jimmy, how you say his name? Savile, prophilic pedophile abuser. Yeah. So you were calling that before, which that's pretty crazy. The former prime minister, you called it satanic rituals. I think he ended up getting into it, right? You predicted major terrorist attacks in between 2000 and 2012, which was the 9/11 attacks. You predicted the hurricanes that were going to start coming through. You predicted the mass shootings that were going to plague America before they started happening. You've been talking about microchipping for years, which you're starting to do now. Basically all kinds of stuff. The 2008 crash you were predicting. Cashless society you've been saying forever. I could go on and on, but you've gotten this thing right after so many things right. So people call you some kind of crazy quack, but you keep being on the point over and over when everyone else is getting wrong. And even the first time I talked to you, it's a lot more skeptical, but then everything you were saying since then has kind of fallen into place. I think you talked about Greenland. I'd never heard about Greenland. Now, sure enough, they're looking at pulling Greenland. It's just, I guess not really a question. It's just, for everyone calling you crazy, I want to let it out there. Go look through your history, the amount of things you've gotten right, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Jake, that we have to have a little bit of humility as humans by realizing just how little we actually know.
Yes.
There was an ancient Greek philosopher, Socrates, who's quoted as saying that to know is to know you know nothing. That's the secret of true knowledge. And so what you look at, for instance, in terms of reality and the reality that we can see, is that when you look through your eyes into a space, whatever it is, people think they're seeing everything in the space they're looking at. They're not. They're seeing the most ridiculously tiny band of frequency called visible light. And everything beyond that is in the unseen to humans. Mm-hmm. So from that perspective alone, to be dogmatic in terms of I got it now is ridiculous. And so what I've been doing over the last 36 years now is realizing that whatever I know or think I know, there's always more to know.
Yes.
There's always more to know. That is something that cannot be challenged. There's always more to know. And what I've seen with the so-called alternative media, or so much of it, not all of it, but so much of it, is it goes to a certain point, which is basically the political, corporate, banking level, and stops and thinks, I got it now. And you've not even begin to have got it at that level. What you're seeing is one way, fundamental way, very important way, we need to know about it, that this plays out, this control of humans plays out. But it's not the origin. And I've been watching an interview in the last, today actually, clips of the interview with Tucker Carlson and a Dutch activist called Eva van Dingebroek. And she's talking about how this is happening or that's happening on a political level, etc. And then he asks, but who's behind it? Who's basically calling the shots in all this? Who's making it happen? And she said, I don't know. The point being that if you have a religious belief that is unquestioning, I mean, I have a problem with people having religious beliefs, it's none of my business. But if you are unquestioning in that belief, if you are, it doesn't matter whether it's Christianity or Hinduism or Judaism or Islam, as long as you've got a rigid belief that you will not waver from, what you're doing is you're putting yourself in a box, a perceptual box. Because if you go beyond the box into the infinity of possibility and insight, you're very quickly going to leave the box, whatever you call yourself. And most people don't want to do that. And most people rigidly believe what they think religiously anyway. So no, that can't be true because it's not in the Bible. And then you have the political ideology, which is just another religion. It's another box.
Yeah, and, Democrat, Republican.
Yeah, Democrat, Republican, Labour, Reform, Nigel Farage's party in this country, Conservative Party in this country. It's all the kind of same, where you see everything in a certain light, and instead of looking at information on the basis of is it credible or not, what does it look like from a dispassionate point of view, it's passing it through the belief system filter.
Yes.
So if a Democrat says it, it must be wrong and ridiculous to the right. If the right says it, it must be wrong and ridiculous to the left, instead of looking dispassionately at the information and seeing if it stands up to scrutiny or not. My goodness me, have we reached an extreme of that since the turn of 2026. So
yeah, the Trump administration has been insane.
Yeah,
they do the exact opposite of what they ran on, and then the party just goes along with it. To me, that's just baffling. And almost everything opposite what he said, and they're just the cult just goes along with them, and that to me is just. I never followed politics, but seeing stuff like that is just shocking.
Yeah.
So, anyways, go on.
and what you have therefore is people putting themselves in perceptual boxes and denying them the infinity of possibility beyond the box. And if there's a few of you, and in terms of the people in full knowledge of what they're doing, it is a few compared with the global population, then crucial to that, because there's so few of you and so many of the target population, you have to divide and rule. You have to get them to fight each other and be so focused on battling and fighting with each other that they're not looking up and seeing that you're holding the strings to both of them. And that means that once you can get someone in a rigid, unquestioning belief system, religious or political, whatever, cultural, you not only put them in a perceptual box and they won't go beyond it, you've got the perfect environment now for dividing and ruling. And those two things, actually they're one thing, get people in a rigid belief system, is how humanity has been controlled all along. And what we're seeing with Donald Trump, I picked Donald Trump up the moment he basically came on the political scene in 2016. And he had con man written on his, and fraud written on his forehead. For me, it was pretty obvious. And, people say, oh, well, he's not doing what he said he would do, and he's doing what he said he wouldn't do. Okay. Well, how could I say years and years ago that that's what he would do? For a simple reason. I have this phrase, know the outcome and you'll see the journey. If you don't know the outcome, where we're being taken as a humanity into greater and greater dystopia and control of human perception, thought, emotional response, then the world appears to you to be random. It's random, it's bewildering. why did they do that? Why did they do that? Why don't they do it that way? It's more obviously better. Why do they do it this way? Why is Trump not doing what he said he would do? Well, because he never intended to. Once you have, once you grasp that we're being taken to a level of AI digital dystopia, the like of which we've never seen in known human history, suddenly the random events that appear bewildering become very clear stepping stones to that outcome. And when you then realize, as I did in the early 1990s, amid great ridicule and laughter, that actually there is the level you see in the public arena. There's the Trumps and there's the Harrises and the Starmers and all these people. There's the Klaus Schwabs and the Bill Gateses. But you step back into the shadows, and really deep in the shadows. I'm sure we'll get into the level of the shadows we need to go to get to the origin of this. But if you just go back into the shadows, you've got a force. I call it the global cult. It's a global network of secret societies with an interlocking mission control leadership, an inner core. But most of the people involved in the secret societies have no idea that this core exists.
Thanks for watching Fight Back Podcast. If you like the show, like, subscribe, or share the video. There's also donation links in the descriptions. I think that's important real quick, because people think, oh, there's people couldn't be in on it, but most people aren't on it. They're just doing their little position that they're told. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's important people understand that. You're absolutely right. All these secret societies are fiercely compartmentalized. So that, I mean, just look at the Freemasons as an example, but it's the same with all of them. The 33rd or 33 degrees of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry has the great majority of its members in the bottom three levels of degree, so-called blue degrees. And what are these degrees? They're degrees of knowledge. So you have a self-correcting, self-defending mechanism whereby each higher level of degree has to agree that you can go into their level, and if they don't agree, then you can't. And it's protecting the system from anyone coming into it and getting it to any level that may not be safe, may spill the beans, etc. And so you look at the Freemasons, and there's a small core that's actually in the knowledge of what that organization is really for and really about, and most of its membership is not. Now, when you get into the more extreme levels of these secret societies, many of which don't have names to make them harder to track, then more of their membership will know the bigger picture. But most of them are just compartmentalized from understanding. They're just doing it for money or clout and stuff. Doing what they're told. You join the Freemasons. You might, if the planning guy on the council is in your lodge, well, you might get a few contracts that you wouldn't otherwise get. That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But the real point of this cult is driving this constant dystopia, ultimately involving artificial intelligence. So if you then realize that this shadow level that you don't see actually works through all political parties, it works through all the corporations, the major corporations. It works through Silicon Valley corporations and the social media platforms. It works through the World Health Organization, the World Trade Organization, and so on and so forth, the World Economic Forum and such like. Then you
you know that if you have reached a point where you're entering political office, whether you're left or whether you're right, you've got there because this cult has either allowed it to happen because it suits them, or they've manipulated you knowingly and in full knowledge into that position. And so when I look at the, I've been doing this a long time, 36 years.
Yeah.
So there were times when the Clintons were in government, when Bill Clinton was the president, when Barack Obama was the president. And I was calling them out, and the Bushes, Republican, I was calling them all out, don't care what their political
it doesn't matter what side they're on,
is, because they were advancing this agenda, this non-random but appears random agenda towards more and more dystopia. So when Trump came on the scene in 2016, I was watching him with great interest because when he started out, he had about the best part of 20 people in the Republican Party who were seeking the presidency. Mm-hmm. And I watched them fall away and fall away and fall away. And eventually he is the chosen one. And I thought then, this guy's going to win. This guy is selected. And he won. And now he's come back for a second go. And because if you look at what these people talk about, those in the public arena of this cult, they talk about 2030 being a very specific time for so much to be introduced in this dystopia, not least as Ray Kurzweil at Google has talked about, this AI expert as he promotes himself, that by 2030, humans are going to be increasingly connected to artificial intelligence. And in his words, artificial intelligence will do more and more of human thinking until human thinking is negligible. So we are in that point now where they're rushing full on to get to that point where artificial intelligence basically hijacks the human mind. That's what it's all about. Yeah. And as a result of that, things get faster and faster and faster as they get closer and closer to their goal. And so with Trump, I was saying when he was running his election campaign for the second time, that he was going to, tell people what they wanted to hear. That's what politicians do, so they'll get elected. And then, overwhelmingly, he would not do what he said he would do. He will do things he said he wouldn't do, and he will facilitate the rushing forward of this AI agenda. It took him 2 days, if you remember, Jake, to wheel out Larry Ellison and Sam Altman, the other guy, after his inauguration, to announce an up to $500 billion AI data center extravaganza. And he's gone on ever since with documents that have been published by the White House to push on this artificial intelligence agenda. And that's what we're seeing. And, you know, if you don't see this other level that is manipulating these apparently different organizations, parties, corporations in the public arena, then you're never going to understand where it's coming from.
I know.
It's not coming from Trump, and it's not coming from Harris, and it's not coming from Starmer, it's not coming from Blair, it's not coming even from Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates. They're gophers.
Yeah, they're even answering people like Peter Thiel, but then they're probably answering people as well. But it is scary when you see the Peter Thiel with the Palantir. They do the kill lists in Palestine, I'm sure you know, and now they're having lists on American citizens, and he's pushing that data. The Larry Ellisons, like you just said, the amount of power Elon Musk had, I never realized it. You're the one. I was always kind of an Elon supporter, thought he was legit. And then you pointed out all the things like running like 6 companies while he's tweeting all day, playing video games. It's just not possible. I didn't realize all the government contracts he's had. So this is putting it together with the satellites, the kill lists, the drones they're making, the AI. I don't think we have long, like you said. They're trying to push it by 2030. That's 4 years, and it does seem like it's accelerating. Like the first Trump presidency wasn't great, but this one's far worse in my opinion. I mean, he went around, he locked down our country, but like this one, he seems just completely out of his mind, talking about, he's already invaded Venezuela, talking about taking Greenland. He almost just went and bombed Iran, but seems like he backed out last minute for there's conflicting reasons as why. It seems completely gone mad.
Well, you see, one of the other things I said that would happen in the Trump era is that there would be diversions all over the place. Because if you're a magician, he's not a magician, he's a gopher. But if you're a magician in the shadows, if you're a magician on a stage, you want people looking at your left hand while you're doing the trick with your right. And so what we're going to see through 2026, my God, I said this before 2026 started, and my goodness, look where we are already. You're going to see diversions all over the place to get people to look in this direction and not see the enormously fast unfolding of the AI human fusion agenda and the digital control agenda. The two are absolutely connected, of course. And already, and really, if you look at Trump, he is the perfect guy for diverting attention. I mean, you wake up in the morning, you put on the internet, and it's like, what's he said now? What's he done now? And it's like he's become a 24-hour soap opera, and all these things that are taking people's attention away. And I can understand why that happens, but what it's doing, it's hiding and obscuring this onslaught, which it is, towards human AI fusion. And what does that mean? You know, when there's a few of you and you want to control the many, you have to divide and rule and get them into belief systems like I've talked about. But you also have to control, and it's all part of that too, but you have to control their perception. Because if you want to control someone's behavior, you've got to get their perception, because then their behavior will follow as a result of that. So if you look at COVID, you controlled perception by telling people worldwide there was a deadly virus. And if they were going to protect themselves and their families, they had to do what authority told them, and we're going to impose it anyway. And that the only way to protect yourself ongoing from this deadly virus was a fake vaccine, not even a vaccine under previous criteria, for which there have been dire consequences, death and health destruction for so many people worldwide. So you control perception, there's a deadly virus, and then you control behavior. We must do what authority tells us to protect ourselves. And so part of that control of perception is to realize where perception comes from. It comes from the information we receive. It might be a personal experience, it might be the 10 o'clock news, it might be an internet post, whatever. We take this information and we form our perceptions from it, especially in line with our belief systems often. And so you then start to look at censorship in a completely different light. Because what is censorship? They don't do it for a bit of fun. They do it because it's essential to control perception. Because if you have the free flow of information, where all information is available to everyone in the same way, no shadow banning. You just say what you think, and it goes out to anyone who wants to hear it. Then you've got a real problem trying to control perception, because what you want them to believe is what you're telling them. But now these other people are giving them another way of looking at the same situation, and maybe they'll look at it and go, well, actually, that makes more sense than what the authorities are telling me. You don't want that. So censorship is about controlling the information that people receive. Now, what this AI human fusion is about is going to the next level, where you don't need to control information anymore. All you need to do is have the human brain, mind, body connected to artificial intelligence, and it will then do their thinking. It will then think for them. And that artificial intelligence will not be thinking, who's running the world? To what end?
Yeah, right.
What is this reality? Who am I really? What am I doing here? It won't ask those things.
No.
And so you're looking at total perceptual control. And don't take my word for it. Listen to these oligarchs and these AI people like Kurzweil. Once that connection is made to artificial intelligence, the cloud, as he calls it, then artificial intelligence will do more and more of human thinking until human thinking is negligible. That is the ultimate control. And what I'm saying is, while all these diversions are going on, that's what's being driven in the background faster and faster and faster. And you're absolutely right. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, David Sachs, who's been appointed the AI czar by Trump, Mark Andreessen, Larry Ellison, all these people are Sam Altman. They're all part of this oligarchy that's pushing on this AI control. And if you look at, people might say, "Oh well, yeah, but Elon Musk he bought Twitter X and he's on our side." Yeah, well, that was the idea.
He's already shadow banning guys like me and you.
Yeah,
like we took my check mark away. We're being deboosted while the other guys are being boosted. They're pushing the schlop, and it's disappointing for me when I realize a lot of the other alternative media people are full of it. Not all of them, but like the amount of pressure and like favors I was offered to endorse Trump, because I wouldn't endorse Trump before, was crazy to me. All these guys saying things they would do for me. Oh, they'll get me this White House thing, connect to this, just endorse Trump, just endorse Trump. I couldn't believe I was getting that pressure from other of these free media people. So stuff like that, seeing is like, I don't think it didn't feel organic, the amount of people that are trying to pressure me to endorse Trump at the end. The last election.
I could put that in some perspective. What actually happened there, and why.
And I'm glad I didn't endorse him. By the way, I didn't cave, and I was being offered not money but other big favors and stuff to do it, and it was just like no.
Well, that alone is very, very telling. So I started this 36 years ago on this journey, and I've gone deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole. I'm sure we'll get there as we go along, to see the bigger and bigger picture within which this whole thing plays out.
By the way, it's all written out in Roadmap. By the way, I don't want to forget to plug your book a few times. Excellent book. Just finished it.
Thanks. Well, I wrote that for a simple reason. I saw people waking up to this, or waking up to that, or waking up to that. And I wanted to show how that and that all was all connected, and it was actually one enormous tapestry of control, which actually in the end goes out of this dimension of reality. I'm sure we'll get into that. But what I was saying is, once COVID happened, at the start of COVID, enormous numbers of people just did what they were told, because they were frightened. Fear is the great conduit of control. And they were doing what they were told. And even if they didn't want to do what they were told, they were frightened of the consequences of not doing it. Okay. And I remember in the early days of COVID, in Britain, in England, there was some protest by a few people about the restrictions and all the things that were going on. And the police moved in and just arrested them, no problem. By the end of COVID, however, by the end of that whole period of restrictions, I was walking down the streets of London with maybe 100,000 people or more. Because that's what it had got to by then, because people were starting to realize the scam. And the police, by the way, were on the side of the road watching us walk past because there's just too many people. If only we realized that if we put the fault lines of divide and rule down and focused upon a common threat to all of us and all our kids and all our grandkids, then it's over. But it's this divide and rule which is essential to making sure that that never happens. So then I started to see, because the number of people I saw who were starting to say, you know, this conspiracy stuff, there may be something in it. I mean, how did this COVID come about? How did most of the world do the same thing as everyone else? And the people were starting to awaken to the fact that the world was not like they thought it was. Mm-hmm. And what I saw then, because if you are this cult, up to this point, you were pretty much controlled perception by controlling the mainstream media. And it's been, you know, very straightforward. You have a common story narrative that goes everywhere through the mainstream media. But what became clear increasingly, and would have done to this cult during COVID, is that there were increasing numbers of people that weren't having that anymore. Mm-hmm. And they weren't believing the mainstream media. In fact, they had absolute contempt for it. So then you look, you go, well, how do we continue to control their perception? Because they're not taking the mainstream media seriously anymore. So where are they getting their information from? Oh, well, they're getting it from this alternative media that didn't exist when I started out, and I watched it form, and I was delighted at that time that it did. Mm-hmm. But if you're this cult, you say, well, we've got to have our people in there then. We've got to hijack that alternative narrative. And what happens if you follow the flow of research, and you know, whatever I know, there's always more to know, is that you continually are expanding and expanding your understanding. Because once you've got to a certain point, you think, well, I think I've got that, but what don't I know? And you go deeper and deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole, and the whole thing gets a bigger and bigger panorama. So they don't want that. This cult does not want that. They want, so you look at it and you go, well, the genie's out of the bottle, because all these people now are realizing that they're not being told the truth about the world and how it works. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to put them back in. I mean, lots of people will just believe what they're told without question, whatever. But this expanding number of people, which is starting to get out of hand, they will not go back in the box completely. So what do? Well, what we have to do is we have to hold them at the play out level of what we're doing. We have to hold them at the political, corporate, banking level of perceptual control, that they think that is the conspiracy and that's all it is. Mm-hmm. And that is what has happened. And, you know, you don't need, there will be some for sure, but you don't need everybody that you bring in and promote, and you algorithmically promote, and you financially promote, mm-hmm. to know exactly what they're doing. But if you take someone who thinks that the entire conspiracy is only on the political level and that's all it is, okay, well, that's what we want people to believe.
Yeah.
So therefore, we're going to algorithmically promote this guy. We're going to fund this guy or this woman, and we're going to get them having massive numbers, and we're going to take over the central part of the alternative media that most people watch and listen to, and we're going to hold them in the box of, instead of seeing the world like that, we're going to let them see the world like that, but no more, no more.
As many of you guys know, I run a free speech podcast. That comes as a price. It's being demonetized everywhere. So one way to support the podcast is to buy your books from AntelopeHillPublishing.com. Today's selection is The Trans-Industrial Complex. This book covers the money-making machine of the trans industries and shows it's not to help people, but to make money and get rich. So again, if you want to support the podcast, go to AntelopeHillPublishing.com and be sure to use promo code FIGHTBACK. That'll save you money and support me. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, that some of these major podcasters who have basically become the center of the alternative media since COVID, particularly, they won't talk to me, like Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan.
Seems like everyone's avoiding you. It seems like, which is weird because you're such a massive name.
But they won't talk to me now. Why? Well, I would say that it's because I'm operating, as we'll get into as we continue our chat, way beyond this. It's the political level, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
And that's what they don't want people to know. And again, it's not necessarily that even people like Rogan or Carlson know what they're doing in terms of the real reason they're not having me on. But you've talked about the pressures. And
sometimes it's just pressure. Like, it's not even like, maybe they're not even manipulating to do it, but someone's like, oh, don't have him on. And like I said, I wasn't offered money, but I was offered some pretty big favors. I was kind of shocked, and multiple people were telling me this. And I was wondering, like, is this orchestrated? Why am I getting so much pressure? And people offer me things to endorse Trump. I thought that was extremely odd. So. Yeah,
well, see, Trump was the chosen one. And why he was the chosen one, we now see. But if you're going to get all this constituency of people that are starting to see, hey, we're being lied to, we're not being told the truth, there is a conspiracy to control humans and what have you. If you're going to get them to support someone, you've got to get them to believe that someone is being targeted by the quote deep state, because
they did a great job of that with
all
the fake arrests and the assassination. They did an amazing job for that. For a second I'm like, oh, they really are after him. But I noticed right before the election, the media wasn't attacking him as much as they were. All the worst billionaires started backing him up. That's when I'm like, oh, this is all fake.
Yeah, and of course Musk came in, and the AI oligarchs came in because he was going to be the facilitator for their agenda of AI human digital control. And, one of the things I watched, it was kind of funny. There was a series on it was on BBC, actually, surprisingly, but it was, which was basically based around MI5, MI6, and they were trying to uncover, not MI5, MI6, they were doing it, but some of the quote, good guys in the series were trying to uncover the fact that they had technology which was able to, in real time, change what a CCTV camera was showing. And that was the whole basis of it. But the reason I bring this up is because in part of the series, there was this politician who was getting himself into various scandals, but somehow always got out of them. And eventually he meets the people that have been orchestrating his career without him knowing. And it was a tech algorithm expert. And the guy realized that his whole career had been steered by these people from the background,
Without him even realizing it?
Including the bits he thought were bad for him. And he said the obvious question. He said, well, if you've been steering my career from the background using basically algorithmic methods, why have I had so many things that threatened to destroy my career? And he said, because that's what the algorithms said had to happen to get you to be the prime minister. So it doesn't necessarily mean that everything's going to go swimmingly. It means the algorithm decides that this needs to happen to get you in the top job. And I was watching Trump during the run up to his election. And I was seeing all these court cases against him and all these attacks on him, legal attacks. And as he got closer and closer to the election, including right up to almost his inauguration, they were going away.
Yeah, that was so. I was baffled by that. Like, how do they just go away?
They were going away, and they were going away after they'd done their job, basically. Because if you remember, Jake, after his first term, when Biden came in, basically Trump's star was fading. He was fading into the background.
No, he was until he started all the arrests.
Then came the raid on Mar-a-Lago to do with classified documents. And suddenly I watched this because I like to observe life without having a dogmatic, this is what's going on kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I just observe life, and I watched it. And I thought, well, I'm going to be interested to see what happens to Trump's popularity now. And immediately his star started to rise. They're trying to stop Trump. And this went on and on and on. Then you had the assassination attempt when he miraculously was shot in the ear, but the ear didn't confirm that when he took the bandage off after a few days. And suddenly it's like they're after Trump. And then, as you rightly say, all these so-called influencers, including people like Alex Jones, who is now supporting everything he once railed against.
He's the globalist now.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It's insane. Whatever the globalist talking point is, Alex Jones is going to be puppeting it now. It's just sad.
Exactly. And so you had these influencers that were all driving this narrative that the deep state is out to get Trump. And I'm sitting there, I'm posting things on X and getting untold abuse, but I don't mind. I don't care. I'm interested in what's going on, not a statue.
What's true is more important.
And I'm shaking my head and I'm thinking, what do you mean the deep state's out to get him? He's deep state to his DNA. Just look at his history back in the days even of business and stuff. How the Rothschilds, through Wilbur Ross, a 24-year Rothschild employee, brought together 72 banks to save Trump from the most monumental, massive bankruptcy in the early 90s. And without that, he would have been nowhere in business, never mind in politics. And then you had his blatant connections to Jeffrey Epstein and what Epstein talked about him being his best friend for 10 years or more. And suddenly he comes on the political scene. And, through this, well, I picked him up in 2016. I said, this guy's a fraud. And I think this guy's meant to be the president. And he got in. But now, when he got in the second time, I was looking at it and I was thinking, this is a scam going on here. And the MAGA base is being scammed to support him, to get him into office. And when he gets there, he is going to be a very different character, not least in pushing the AI stuff. And that's exactly what's happened. And again, if you look at Biden and Clinton and Obama, they are controlled by this cult. And then you've got, on the so-called right, you've got your Bushes. I mean, Father George Bush,
pedophile, long family of it.
I mean, oh dear, I wrote about him in my books years ago. Unbelievable. What
I need to go read all. I need to read all your old books. I haven't read those.
Yeah,
read a couple of them, but
and then you've got the Republicans controlled by the same force. So what you know is that whoever gets into power is going to advance that agenda, which they all have. The point is, you've got different constituencies you have to keep relatively happy. So if you are of the left and you're in power, then you have to just pay a bit of lip service to what you think your natural constituency wants.
Yep.
And if you're of the right, you have to do the same. But of course, Trump may talk about running again in 2028 and all that stuff. But basically, this is his last term. He's got no more election to win. And if you look at him, his cognitive dismantling, he probably won't be around to run again.
Yeah, they probably want to trade him with JD Vance, which is something I've been thinking, and you said that in your book. You know, there's several more things I want to talk about till we get into the stuff that you get called crazy for. But no, the Trump stuff's really important. Like, for one, Epstein and him he said he was best friend. They flew together at least 7 times. That's 2 guys with private jets that typically don't, change their schedules around. If you have a private jet, you're usually not flying with other people. That's a lot of times to fly. Their connection was so close. I'm kind of thinking that maybe Trump was controlled all along, but he's such an egomaniac. They also have stuff from the Epstein files on him. And it seems like maybe they showed him that recently, like, hey, we have this on you. He's been accused of raping several 13-year-old girls with Epstein at the house that was all cameraed up. One of the girls, I believe, was shot in the head after, according to the Epstein's files. They say it wasn't confirmed, but someone reported that, a girl was raped by Epstein and Trump at the house, and he was concerned she was going to get killed, and then she got shot in the head right after that. So these types of things, to me, it seems like he's probably controlled, but then also blackmailed on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Epstein thing was a Mossad CIA blackmail operation. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to a number of the women now, young teenagers then, who were pulled into the Epstein circle network, and they all tell you about the hidden microphones and cameras. So it was an obvious blackmail operation. Now, this is interesting. First of all, Trump has been in the whole ultra-Zionist arena way back. I mean, his father was a friend of Netanyahu when Netanyahu was in America, and then you had this period where he's a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein is running this blackmail operation, and Trump was clearly compromised. Then, out of nowhere, in 2015, 2016, he suddenly announces he's going to run for the presidency. And he wins. And in his first term, he basically, not entirely, but basically, overwhelmingly, gave Israel everything it wanted. He moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He recognized the Golan Heights as Israel territory. There's a I think it's called Trump Heights now in that Golan area, named after him as a result of that. And then he's come in this time, and it's blatantly obvious he is controlled by Israel. It's blatantly
it's so
obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've written about in my books over the years, that network that controls Israel, of which Netanyahu is a serious frontman, connects into this global cult. It's a very significant aspect of this global cult. And so when you look at what happened in Gaza, you had the work of absolute extreme psychopaths, both Trump in supplying the weapons and in Netanyahu, dropping them on Palestinians. And so you then look at what they must have on Trump as a result of his association, and you've basically got a dual situation where he has enormous sympathy for Israel and this Netanyahu ring within the cult, and he also is subject to enormous blackmail. And when you think that the lengths he's gone to stop the totality of these documents coming out regard to Epstein, then it's just confirmation of what the hell must be in him.
Yeah, it must be extreme. They released the part probably by accident, the part of allegedly of him raping and a girl getting killed. That was released. So imagine what they're not releasing. They say they've only released 1% of them, and he's, our Congress passed a law saying he has to release them. He's still not doing it. Our judges have ordered it, and he's just saying no. It's insanity. Anyone that's supporting Trump after that, this guy's clearly protecting a pedophile blackmail ring for operation, and there people are going, MAGA, like, get the fuck out of here. There becomes a point where it's just embarrassing.
Yeah, but the situation you have is his soft support has evaporated. People that
he has lost a lot of people.
Yeah, people that believed that he is going to he was going to do what he said he'd do and not do what he said he is doing. They've drifted away. You see that in the polls. But what you're left with is the hardcore people who they have a choice. They can look at the situation and they can say, oh, I was wrong there. I got scammed there. Or you double down. And the more you double down, as people like Alex Jones have found out and others, and all the time he's getting more extreme, but you're now not only committed to have supported him into office, you're now doubling down despite what he's done up to this point. So what are you going to do now? Say, no, I was wrong the first time and I was wrong to double down. No, people like that don't do that. They double down, no matter what he does. And basically what happens is they get sucked in to trying to convince, I'm seeing this with Alex Jones all the time, trying to convince themselves that he is the person they said he was. And that they therefore disappear up their own backsides, trying to justify things that he's doing as if they are somehow just bringing the deep state down. Now, here's the thing, Jake, which is an important point. I watch the Alex Joneses and the people like him, and there are many, Benny Johnsons and all these other people. And they talk about the fact that Trump is bringing down the deep state. That's what he's doing. He's bringing down the old world order. Okay, he is, but not for the reasons they say. If you have a status quo, whatever it is, a political status quo, a financial status quo, then if you want to move that to another status quo, you want to advance it to the next stage of your plan, then you can't do that while the status quo exists, because it's going to stop it moving on. And so what we're seeing is not Trump bringing down the deep state and the old order in the way that they suggest. We're seeing Trump as a wrecking ball, economically, politically, in so many multi-level areas. He's bringing down the old order. Okay, so you can go back right into history and see this cult agenda unfolding. But let's pick it up at the First World War. Wars are fantastic for changing, transforming irreversibly what existed before the war. If you have a war with a country, it's the same. If you have a world war, then the world's never the same again. So you had a pre-First World War world. Then you had the First World War, and what that did was destroy the status quo, the global status quo. Now suddenly, when we got to 1918, the world is a very different place, and it allowed through Rothschild-dominated operations like the Versailles Peace Conference in 1919 to have the world redrawn. So much of the world was redrawn, it was never the same again. You then had the next stage of the demolition of the status quo, the pre-First World War status quo, and that was the Great Depression, which affected, the world. And then you had the Second World War. So immediately you've got the pre-First World War status quo being absolutely slaughtered through the first half of the 20th century. And at the end of the Second World War, the world was absolutely nothing like it was in 1914.
Yeah.
And what did you have then? You had the centralization of global power, because when you watch the transition of this global cult operation plan, it follows a very clear direction, which is the constant centralization of power. Because
I've
the
noticed
more
that.
you centralize power, the more power the fewer and fewer and fewer have over the more and more and more. So at the end,
They use wars and tragedies to get that. That's what I've noticed.
exactly.
Sorry to cut you off, but I noticed that World War II, 9/11, how they use these tragedies to get their events done.
Exactly
You've
right.
been calling this out for years.
It's a thing a phrase I coined in the 1990s: problem, reaction, solution. Create the problem and then offer the solution to the problem, which is to transform the world and advance your agenda for more and more centralization of power. So at the end of the Second World War, you had the creation of the United Nations after the League of Nations, after the First World War had not worked. You had the Bretton Woods Agreement, you had the creation of the World Bank, the IMF, all these global centralization institutions. And that's pretty much what we've had up to very recent times. That period, basically the period of my life. I was born in 1952, about 7 years after the Second World War. And that's been my world up to very recently, relatively recently. But now the idea is to move to the end game phase they've been aiming towards all along, which is the AI digital control phase of hijacking human cognition, perception completely through AI, and controlling people's movement and decision making and possibility via digital control. Now, that means this stage between the end of the Second World War and relatively recently has to go so that can come in. And that's what Trump is doing. He's the wrecking ball, and there are others around the world doing the same, but he's the focal point.
Yeah, Netanyahu over in
for this
in the Middle
whole
East.
order. Now, what the Alex Joneses of this world are doing is saying he's bringing down the deep state. No, he's not. He's owned by the deep state, if you want to call it that, the global cult. And he's just destroying the status quo so a new one can it be introduced, which is what's happening simultaneously. You've got him wrecking ball the status quo, and he's circled by the AI oligarchs to push on to the next stage of the end game, which is AI digital control.
Yeah, I know. And that's not far off, so it's scary. Let me ask one more question, then maybe switch over to the stuff that people call you crazy for. This is going to be kind of a longer question, just so we can move along, or several part question, because it's like, as we can see right now in the United States, you have Trump. He's gone completely mad. He's talking about stealing Greenland, which this was an idea that was pushed by Elon Musk's grandpa, which I found very interesting.
Yeah.
You know, the war with Venezuela, which kind of came out of nowhere. I thought it was more bluffing. Then all of a sudden he's in there kidnapping when he pushed against wars. The war in Iran that he's pushing, that seems potentially maybe for greater Israel. My dad was actually a Green Beret. He was stationed in Iran instead of Vietnam. And I don't know exactly what he did. Unfortunately, he's passed, but he was extremely disillusioned by the United States military. He felt like he'd done some very bad things over there and wasn't on the right side. Unfortunately, he's not alive, so I can't ask him exactly what he was doing. But he definitely felt like he was doing bad things, not good things, for the U.S. government as the special forces in Iran, along with the Shah, I believe he was working with. So he was over there doing, and I don't know the politics of Iran to get enough in to say who's good, who's bad over there. But it seems apparent that, Netanyahu's hell-bent on taking out Iran. And then you have Trump, who's trying to do this. I think you were telling me a while ago how they wanted to do this Americas, where they've taken Greenland, part of it, potentially Mexico, the Panama Canal, Venezuela, all this. And it seems like that is all being played right before our eyes.
Well, that map you mentioned is quite devastating, really. Elon Musk's grandfather was called Joshua Haldeman, and he was involved in Canada, although it began in the United States, in something called Technocracy. And this is a form of government that does not have elected politicians, but has appointed technocrats and bureaucrats and whoever they choose to put in the positions of power. And Haldeman, was targeted in Canada for what he was doing. He was a supporter of Hitler. And then he moved in the 50s with his wife to apartheid South Africa because he supported apartheid. And Elon Musk was born in South Africa to Haldeman's daughter. He then moves back into Canada, Elon Musk, and then down into America. And Haldeman had a map. The Technocracy that he was part of had a map of what they wanted the technate, as they call it, to consist of. And this is in the 1930s. And it started at the top of South America with Venezuela and Colombia, went up through Panama and Central America, through Mexico, United States, obviously, Canada, which Trump says he wants to make the 51st state, Cuba, and the top of it was Greenland. And this is in the 1930s. And he's come in, Trump, and never mentioned this in the election campaign. And suddenly he's wants all these countries. So that, Trump is a gopher, right? If you talk to anybody who has had any close relationship with Trump, they'll say he's a moron. He's not very bright. He not only doesn't he listen to people, He doesn't read documents or any of it. And he is therefore a perfect tool for manipulation. I remember talking to journalists at the time of Margaret Thatcher in Britain, and she was barely one-dimensional. I mean, seriously, barely one-dimensional. The Iron Lady. And what they were saying is that what they were learning from people around her is that all you had to do was come up with an idea, like a policy, like a direction, and make sure that she thought it was her idea. Long as it was her idea, that was fine. If it was your idea, well, you might have more of a problem getting it through. And when I look at what is said about Trump by people who've had any connection to him, if you praise the hell out of him and you eulogize him to his face because he's such an unbelievably narcissistic human, and if you go back to his childhood and his upbringing with his father and his mother, he is still, if you look at it psychologically, he's still trying to please his father. Still today. This is why so many people have said the worst thing you can do if you want to infuriate Trump is call him a loser. Because basically that's what his father was indicating when he was younger. And so he's a doddle to manipulate by people like Stephen Miller and Howard Lutnick and all these other people around him who've got his ear. If you know how to manipulate him and you make him think that it's his idea and what a great idea it is and what a great president he is and he's the best president in history. And, when you watch these cabinet meetings that are televised, and basically they go through the cabinet and everyone just stops and does a eulogy to Donald Trump. Well, tell me what's happening in your department, mate. Yeah. But no, it's a eulogy to Donald Trump because that's how you get favor with Donald Trump, and that's also how you manipulate him. So there'll be people in the background who have his ear, and people in the background behind them that will be manipulating this guy to do these things because it's the cult agenda, and it's not made up as we go along. It's a long-term thing. Hence,
planned out hundreds of years in advance,
being played out.
It's crazy how far ahead they plan. It seems like we hardly plan, a year ahead, but they have it like hundreds of years mapped out. And you can look up records of this. This isn't some crazy, nonsense. You can see like the Greater Israel map. All this stuff has been, taking Greenland. Been mapped out forever. One last thing about Trump. He's such a moron. Did you see how the Venezuelan opposition girl, I forget his name, she won the Nobel Peace Prize? And then he made her give it to him, and he's sitting there holding it with a smile. Could you imagine taking someone else's Nobel Peace Prize and hanging it proudly in your office? It's just so embarrassing.
Well, yeah, and also, Jake, you see her and what she did, and the unbelievable lack of self-respect that she clearly has, and it's exactly what she did is what I've just been describing. That's what you do. It's just to
exactly. It's just,
Trump. So Trump immediately after Maduro was taken out, he made a public statement that kind of indicated that lady was not going to be involved. She's not basically experienced enough. And basically what he was saying is, I want your Nobel Prize. So she turns up, gives it to him, exactly what you do with Trump. And
so embarrassing.
I'll be very interested now because he's just been interviewed. I've just seen it. And he said, oh, she's a wonderful woman now. Well, it's a bit different to what you said before. But sorry, you didn't have the Nobel Peace Prize before, did you? He said, she's a wonderful woman and we'll be talking again. I'll be very interested to see where she goes in relation to Trump from here after basically paying homage to the living God.
Yeah, it'd be so embarrassing. It would be the equivalent of, let's say, I had power and I'm like, I like David Icke's books. I want you to say I read them and came and gave it to me and I hung it up my wall. Or if you're like, you know what, I want to have won some fighting world titles. You have to come give me your championship belts. And I went and awarded to him and you put them up like, look at these belts I won. It's just, it's insanity. Like, I don't know how he's not embarrassed by that, to just take someone's Nobel Prize. And I think she probably didn't deserve it to begin with, but it's just embarrassing. And that's our president. And you have MAGA cheering this on. I don't even know what to say. Well, I get attacked for not supporting MAGA, but
it's a classic. I mean, the guy Trump is a child. He's a child.
Yeah,
and it's like, you know, the old story of the emperor's new clothes, when the emperor is stark bloody naked, and everyone's saying, "Oh, that's a wonderful clothes. Oh, what lovely clothes, emperor," and all that stuff. And some little child says, hey, "Hold on, he's naked. He got any clothes on." And so you've got all these people around Trump eulogizing him, telling him how wonderful he is. You've got all these sycophants in MAGA. A lot of them have gone, but the extreme ones are left, who are saying the same. And then anyone with a brain cell on active duty is looking at it and going, "He's a freaking child. He's naked. Look at him." And once that penny drops, everything starts to make sense. And it was a classic that she paid homage to him, gave him her Nobel Peace Prize. Not that matters if you look at some of the people who've won it.
Yeah, exactly. The people that win that. And I don't know why he wanted that so bad.
No, but because he's a narcissist. But well,
he's been asking for that for years. It's crazy. He's been just so badly wanted that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, he has Netanyahu for it.
Yeah, Netanyahu.
Okay.
He's the next winner, isn't he?
Yeah, right. He can give Netanyahu, Trump wanted Netanyahu to give it to him. You have a wanted international war criminal asking for because he gave him like top Jew of the award. I don't know what it's called, but a surprise just for Jews. He's like, "Here, I have you this award," and Trump's like, "Well, how about the Nobel Peace Prize?" Netanyahu, "Don't worry. It's just so embarrassing."
Did you see that? That guy that runs FIFA, the global football organization, who's up Trump's backside all the time. He's in the Oval Office a number of times. And they actually created something called basically the FIFA Peace Prize, just to give it to him. I mean,
they make up awards to give to him. It's embarrassing.
Because if we eulogize him and if we pay homage to him, we'll get what we want from him. That's what they're all doing.
As many of you know, I have many controversial guests, so that comes at a cost of being demonetized everywhere. So if you want to support the program, go to fightbackpodcast.com, and I have all kinds of merch on there, whether it's jiu-jitsu, fighting, political, and other accessories. And thanks for the support.